না 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 ঢাকা বাইরে যেতে পারবো না। সিস্টেম আমি জানি না, আমার কোনো দরকার
জানলার থাকে না।
তুমি নাও, আমি পারবো না, তোমাকে আমি ছেড়ে দিলাম, তুমি পারবে, আমি পারবো।
Areas all require safety equipment, including, of course, life jackets, which we have in two different places. Downstairs, and the way we came on board the boat. Underneath the right or starboard side staircase.
Zoning laws or fireproofing tactics, no big city can stand the test of time. So after the fire, I want you to appreciate that a big building boom ensued. Property values are skyrocketing, right? It didn't take developers and investors very long here in Chicago to begin to ask the question, how do we build taller? By building the 10-story tall home insurance building in 1885, they doubled the heights of buildings in Chicago that you could build previous. If you double anything, it's always a big deal, right? It's all relative. From 5 to 10 may not sound like much, but it was then. The home insurance building sadly was torn down in 1935, but on this tour and in the downtown loop, you can go see some of the world's most beautiful, original skyscrapers. The other thing, friends, that we couple with the post-fire era and these, new skyscrapers made of further in the distance, and I kick us all now further in time. As you enter into the 1920s and 1930s, that was a very interesting decade, right? The roaring 20s, the women's suffrage movement, prohibition, gangsters, bootlegging, speakeasies, all of our favorite things. When that was all happening, they were building Art Deco style structures. See the Chicago Board of Trade there with the statue on top? That was built in 1930, designed by Holabird and Root. Art Deco buildings obviously are taller. They accentuate their own heights with what are called ribbon windows. They have elegant setbacks on top to allow more sunlight into the city streets. And Art Deco buildings have historical accents. The statue on top with a CBOT there, her name is Ceres. Ceres is the Greco-Roman goddess of grain. She pays tribute to the fact that the Chicago Board of Trade originally was a grains exchange. 451 feet in height, 110 stories tall. This was the tallest in the world from 1974 to 1996. Right now you're looking at the 23rd tallest building in the world. You know it. You love it. It is, of course, the... Very well done. Yes, indeed. It is the Sears Tower. It is now called the Willis Tower. And that's interesting. You know what? Fighting words. I will fight you on a Monday on a boat. That's how adamant. No. All right. I'll come back to the Sears, okay? We'll talk more about mid-century modernism and the dark black boxes they built for 30 years. But glance to the right there, see that tower there? Nothing about 311 South Blacker Drive is a dark black box, right? This came in the postmodern era. You could say that in the 80s, the 90s, when this was built, the 2000s, color, material, history, everything was very big in that era. Notice the red and pink granite on the structure. All that stone came from Texas. They combined beginning and end of boat season. This vertical lift bridge here will open all the time. You need only show up in a big boat, a yacht, a barge, an icebreaker in the winter. Radio in on channel 16, tell them to open up the Amtrak bridge. And throughout Chicago's history and before, right, the water all dumped into Lake Michigan from Highland to Lowland, all that makes sense. As Chicago began to grow very rapidly in the 1800s, right, all the industry came, toxins and waste were dumped indiscriminately into the Chicago River. It's no wonder that all that bad stuff ended up in Lake Michigan. It was killing hundreds of people every year for decades throughout Chicago's history. They could not solve the issue. The sanitation issue was so bad that digging canals and jacking up buildings and building new infrastructure, none of that stuff was to solve the issue. All the bad stuff was still flowing right into Lake Michigan, our source of fresh drinking water. It wouldn't be then, friends, until the year 1892, when the Army Corps of Engineers would come to Chicago to begin what became an 8-year-long process to reverse the flow of the main branch of the Chicago River. For 8 years, they dredged out the main and south branches. They dug these waterways 15, 20 feet deeper the day after the war. Then they built a 27-mile long canal. Very long, wide, deep canal. The dredging process in the canal would utilize gravity boats to pull the water off now the higher point of Lake Michigan. As that water dumped into the lake, it would then, of course, leave clean drinking water out on the lake front. The water would pour through Chicago, pick up the contaminants, toxins, the waste, channel it into the South Branch, funnel it out of town, into the canal, out of sight, out of mind, somebody else's problem. Yay! Yay! That water goes into the Illinois and then Des Plaines River, which ultimately links up with the Mississippi River. That water goes through St. Louis, past Memphis, through Baton Rouge,